So first, let's just talk about what is Fire Studio. Well, Fire Studio allows you to take digital pictures, add smoke, fire, explosions, hazmat elements, and victims to create a very realistic fire simulation. We'll spend a lot of time looking at it and seeing how it works and what's possible with it, but that's just kind of a brief overview of what it does. Now, if you take a look at this crude drawing, this is actually the original concept of where Fire Studio was originated back in the late 90s. I came into a training room and I saw a picture just like this on our whiteboard, and I asked somebody, I said, "Hey, what is that?" And they said, "Oh, that's they had the fire simulation portion of the captain's test in here, and so that was the fire simulator." And I had to laugh. I said, "What? That was the fire simulation? That?" And they said, "Yeah, that's what they do. They draw on there, and people have to respond to it, and that's the fire simulation." So I was, like I said, I was trained in 3D graphics and animation, and I thought, well, man, there's a much better way to do that. So from this drawing, Digital Combustion was really born, and it was born into something that looks a little more like this. So this is where we are today, and so that was a close to a 20-year span to get to here, but this is what we had always envisioned, and that's what we have in our software, and I'll show you a little bit more about that as we go. So like I said, Fire Studio 6, that's what we're talking about right now. It's our latest version of our flagship software, and we like to call it incident simulation software, not only fire simulation, but incident simulation, because you can do things other than fire, as I'll show you in some of the demonstration slides that we have. And before I go on, I'm going to show you a lot of things that you can do with it, but I'm going to make a quick simulation here within the software and just show you how it's done, and then that way you can you'll have a better idea of what you're looking at as we go further into the simulation demonstration. So I'm going to go ahead and go into author mode, and then you'll also be interested to know that I'm actually doing this entire presentation through Fire Studio. So I'm actually running our PowerPoint slides and graphics, animations, everything's being run from within Fire Studio. So I'm going to go ahead and just show you quickly how I can start and build a new simulation. So we have our backgrounds right here, and I'm just going to select a new background and add it to the screen. So once I've added the background to the screen, and this is one of the many that come with Fire Studio, but ultimately you'll be adding your own backgrounds here and then adding the smoke, fire, and all the different things. So I'm going to go ahead and look in here and pick some smoke. So when we go into the smoke library, we've got all sorts of different types of smoke and fire and things that we can do. So I'm going to go ahead and click this smoke right here. And once you put things onto the screen, you can see here I can move them around and put them into place. So I'm going to build up a fire up in this window up here. So you can see that the smoke is a little too small, and so I can go ahead and quickly edit the smoke. I'm going to go ahead and make it bigger, and I can change its angle, so I can change it any way I want. I can also change the color and the opacity and the density and the speed and all that. But for now, we're just gonna put it up into place here. And once I click Finish Editing, so we can see we've got some fire here. Let's go ahead and hit some fire in this area here. I'm going to click this fire, and I'm going to put it up into the simulation. So I'm going to go ahead and edit that fire. I'm going to scale it down a little bit, make it a little smaller. I'll put it into place in that window. Let me see how it looks. I like the look. And then if I want to move it up behind that smoke, I can just click it up. And so that was just a quick demonstration of what you can do very quickly in Fire Studio. So I've got this quick little simulation that I made. It took me 30 seconds, 45 seconds, and I've got actually a really nice little simulation. Now we can get much more involved and make much bigger simulations with a lot of different additions of smoke and fire and things like I'll show you coming up. But this was just an example, just so you know initially how I'm making a lot of these simulations that you'll be looking at. So why are you here? Well, likely you're probably involved in training somehow in your organization. You might be a training officer, and you're responsible for training the members of your department, and hopefully you're looking for something that will help you in that endeavor and to make your training more dynamic and help your employees get better at what they do. So you have to ask, what are you doing now? Are you doing anything at all for simulation right now? Some people are just drawing things on the board, like the whiteboard that I showed. Some people have some free things that they found on the web. Some people are using a Photoshop type program and just drawing smoke and fire on things. So you have to just see what you're using now and then ask yourself, is it working? At Digital Combustion, we've been making simulators in one form or another for almost 20 years now. We've seen what works, and more importantly, we've seen what doesn't work. And so we know how to create success with your training program just because we've done it over and over again with different departments all across the world. So here's just an example. I'm going to show you just a few examples of how the simulation looks and what you can do with it. So this is just a little strip mall. We've got some smoke, heavy smoke and fire coming out of a strip mall, so it looks very realistic. And from the inception of Fire Studio, or actually Digital Combustion, when we first started, we decided that realism really was one of our most important key points of things that we want to do. We want things to look real because as firefighters, we make a lot of decisions based solely on what we see. So we have to pull up, we see something like this, and we've got to make a series of decisions based on the things that we're seeing. So we wanted, when we made our first simulator way back in the 90s, we wanted it to be something that looked real. And from that time all the way to current day, that's really one of the main things that we strive for, is the realism in our simulations. Here's just another example of a lot of different layers of smoke and fire. We actually can have sound in there, so you can hear the fire. You can add your own sounds. So maybe you wanted to put in some radio traffic or dispatch information. You can do it all within Fire Studio. You can also show split views. Here's an example of a split view. We've got a strip mall that's going up. We had an explosion. We can show it in all 4 views. We can show that smoke and fire all spreading simultaneously on all 4 views. So really you can set it up any way you want. You can show a single view at a time and scroll through it, or you can show 4 at once, or you can show 2 at once. Just any way you want to do it. We give you the flexibility of creating your simulations that way, so that's what you can do within Fire Studio. And as you decide how you're going to create your simulations, you can take multiple pictures with multiple views. And we can go interior as well as exterior, and I'll show you a little bit of that later. But really anything you can take a picture of, you can bring it into Fire Studio and set it on fire. You can show different phases of fire, so it can start very small, get very large, like you're seeing here. And then we can even start knocking the fire down. We can show animated hose streams coming into place, and we can see that the smoke's changing color and lightening down. So you can do a multitude of different things within Fire Studio to show the visualization of the fire that you want to show. In this tire warehouse, you can see use of one of our newer smokes. It's a industrial smoke fire combination that looks really great in the situation. As I said before, we can go interior as well as exterior. So here's a interior hallway. We've got some smoke, and you can see it's starting to bank down over time. So we've got, you can show what conditions are happening inside as well as outside. If we wanted to, we can show a Scott mask view. We've added the sound of the breathing apparatus and the fire. We've got some rollover of the flames, and so there's just like I said, anything you can bring in here, we can figure out a way to burn it. One thing that's really unique to Fire Studio and Digital Combustion is we have what we call video clip art. So if you look in the lower left-hand corner of this, we actually have victims coming out, but they're not just cardboard cutouts like you'll see in some of the other simulators. They're actual real people. We've shot on green screen and the same effects that they use in Hollywood movies. Here we've got a firefighter up top doing something. He's working a pike pole, so we've put him in there. That flag up here that you can see waving, that's a piece of video clip art. We can have people falling down on the ground, and different victims, and so it just adds just yet another layer of realism to your simulations. One thing that's new for Fire Studio version 6 is we've got the ability to pull up an external web link from something that's on your simulation page. Like any layer can be clickable where it brings something up. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on this Google icon that I've put here, and that's going to bring up a Google Street View that will allow you to literally walk around on that same street where that house is, and that allows you to walk around the different sides of the building. You can look at driveways or access points. You can see what kind of exposures there are, or maybe where engine placements could be put. So it just gives you a different view of that same simulation that you were once looking at on a single view, and now you can look at it at multiple views on Google Street View. Now that's just one thing you can use the link for. You could actually link to maybe a PDF or a document that you wanted to look at, or maybe an online test that you had on a website. So using those web links are a powerful new feature of Fire Studio 6. So now we've got all the way up from a small house fire to an industrial fire. We can key in explosions on this, so you can actually hear what's seeing here. There's explosions going off. So we give you all sorts of different types of explosions: aerial explosions, ground explosions, flash explosions, and those are all within the Fire Studio instructor version, so you can use all those within your simulations. Now here's a very simple image. I got it off of Google Images. I've added this placard over here so we can cue them into what kind of incident we have. I've got a liquid leak, a little vapor leak over here by the engine of the truck, and then we've also got one of our video clip art victims off to the side here. So really a simple simulation to make, and you could talk about this literally for hours with your crews, trying to determine course of action and different things that you can do within your training to make this incident go smoothly. Just another example of layering that smoke and fire and adding some sound and making a really realistic simulation. And now it doesn't have to be a building. Here's an example of aircraft, but we can do rail cars, tankers, trucks, trains, aircraft like this, small aircraft, anything you can bring in, you can put it into Fire Studio. And we give you all the different types of smoke and fire choices that make it very easy to layer it, and it's all mouse driven, and you can click them and drag them into place and save your simulation. Okay, this simulation is a very typical fire that we might come across. A lot of us have been on something like this 1,000 times in our career, but keep in mind you're hiring a lot of new firefighters who have little to no firefighting experience, and so this becomes a great way to train them and show them what we might do on a call like this. So you can have your new firefighter take a look at this slide and say, hey, before we approach this fire with a hose line, what are you worried about in there? What kinds of things can hurt us in there? How are we going to keep from getting killed? And based on his answers, you can get a great idea of his knowledge level and his way of thinking. And then on the flip side of that, the new firefighter can gain a lot of great insight and knowledge from his company officer as they discuss how they might attack a fire like this, and where they're going to put hose lines and what they're going to do and why. And so it becomes a great tool at the crew level to use fire simulation at all levels of your organization. And remember, it's not only fires that we're talking about. We can take pictures of anything. Like, for instance, here's some different EMS incidents that we can create simulations for. We've got a bus crash, another image we got off of Google Images. We've got victims lying on the ground. We've got victims in the car. Here to the right, upper, we've got a bicycle accident with 2 kids. And again, they're moving. They're not just static cardboard cutouts. They're actual real people. And then on the bottom, we've got a trap victim, where we've also got some fire activity as well. So again, anything you want to bring in here, we can create a simulation from it. High rise, low rise, large big box buildings, anything you can think of. And so here's just a really nice example of a upper floor fire that's going to pose a lot of problems to someone. And so it's a great thing to be able to go over this beforehand and talk about different things that you'd need to do. Some other examples, we have a masking tool that allows you to put the smoke and fire behind things. So that's how we're able to get this fire where it looks like it's actually in that room behind things. And so, you can get really creative and artistic and create, very believable simulations. Here's an example of a time simulation. So as you'll watch, this simulation is going over time, and we've got some blackening down on this front window here, and that's our damage clip art. The damage allows you to put charring and damage or blast stains, you know, if you had an explosion to a building, so that once you start knocking those fires down, you can actually see damage on the building, so the building's not pristine, and you can see where the damage has been done. So it's just another realistic function of Fire Studio. Now you can see that it finally gets up into that attic space, and we're going to have some pressurized smoke come out of there and some pre-burning with some steam until finally that fire will break through the smoke. And so now we've got a really good attic fire going. So it just gives you really a lot of different things that you can do with Fire Studio. And then we can also flip to the back of this, and we can see what's going on the back side of the building as well as the front. So we can see that we've got some other issues that unless they did their 360, they might not have known. So you can build those in as long as you have those photos. Again, all the way from a small house fire to a multi-story high-rise fire. A new feature of Fire Studio 6 is what we call animated layers, and you can see a helicopter and the jogger, and then we've got some smoke that's starting from small to big, but we're going to be able to move layers across the screen now, which opens up a whole nother world of making different types of simulations. We can show planes crashing or cars moving or different things. So it's just another thing we've been designing and developing, and that's based on a lot of user input and things that people request. So we're always constantly trying to make Fire Studio better and better after each different version. Digital Combustion has been getting a lot of requests from law enforcement and fire departments to develop active shooter simulations. So we're really continuing to move quickly in that direction to make those tools available to all of our customers so that they can use them in their simulations. Here's a Wildland incident. You can see here as we advance this fire, it's going to run this hill. We've got some spot fires ahead of it as it advances towards that house. We've got our damage clip art underneath that blackens down the brush. Flag up there that's showing our wind direction. So there's a lot of things going on this, but just another way of showing different types of simulation within Fire Studio. This building is what we call another timed simulation. So what we've done is we've added times for each element and each layer that comes onto the screen, each smoke and each fire. We've added a time frame, so we've told it what time we want it to enter the screen and when we want it to go away. And so in this way we can build a fire up, and so you can have it build and build like this one's doing till it finally jumps floors, and so you can have it burn for a while, and then at a certain point, either with a keyboard shortcut or with more times, we can have it start to get knocked down and change to white smoke and steam, and so we show the fire backing down. And so this was in a short period of time, but you could have that actually in real time over the course of an incident, so you can show it from start to finish. It doesn't have to be a static background. Here's an example of using video as a backdrop. So we've got a video clip, but we still have our smoke and fire in it. And again, just another way of adding another layer of realism to your simulation. So we just never stop coming up with ways to create better and better and more realistic simulations. You can use overhead maps, satellite views. Google Images is great from this. Here we've got a building fire that we've shown engine placement, and you can do that with actual icons. You can put the names of the engines in there and truck companies, and so just gives you another idea of things that you can do as far as using satellite imagery and overhead maps. You can also put in plot plans and pre-plans and use those maps within Fire Studio. So anything you want to bring, as long as you can bring it in as a graphic, you can put it as a background. Okay, I know I've given you guys a lot of information on fire simulation, but let's go ahead and ask the question, why? Why do we want to use fire simulation? One thing we'll look at is our fireground operations, and even on the best of departments, sometimes those operations can be a complete cluster. We know things go wrong all the time, and sometimes there's not a good way to address that and figure out how we're going to make it better. A lot of times it's a communication mess. There's just, communications are wrong, they're bad, they're all over the place, and we just can't get a handle on how to better communicate with each other. And all those things can cause injuries or death, both for firefighters and those that were going in to serve. And so there's just a lot of different reasons that we need to train and do it better. And we also know with social media that some of your fire incidents are broadcast on YouTube before you even get back to the station. So we have to be doing it better. We have to do our job better and better. And there's got to be different ways that we can train and different ways that we can measure that we are getting better. And fire simulation is a great tool for providing just that, so that we can make our operations better. Now, as I said, we've been looking at Fire Studio 6, the instructor edition. That does everything. Everything that you saw in that demonstration. You can create your simulations, you can play them back, you can save them and replay them later, and it has all the smoke, fire, explosions, hazmat elements, victims, all the things you saw are included in Fire Studio 6. And that's the instructor edition. That's the flagship model of our software. Now we also have a player edition, and what the player edition allows you to do, it allows you to play back anything that was made on the instructor edition. So it's a much lower cost piece of software, but if you had multiple stations and you wanted to get those simulations out to different stations, you can use the player edition at a much lower cost. And that's on the PC, Mac, or now on an iPad. So you can actually have players on iPads as well. And we really appreciate you watching this webinar and look forward to hearing from you. Thank you.